There's no pobrecito syndrome, poor baby syndrome, no more gut feelings. We need to go by collecting the data to show, is Lynda responding to instruction compared to her true peers? We're looking at that. So it's a lot of organization, but that's where I have a coach. I have an MTSS coach that goes out and meets with teachers. We go meet with the team. We have to be there. I believe with high expectation comes high support.
Welcome to the ML Chat podcast. Today's guest is Mrs. Lynda Espinoza Idle, a 38-year veteran teacher. Her word of the year is collective efficacy, and that tells you everything about today's conversation. She brings so much experience and warmth to the work that she's doing. She really specializes in the pre-referral and referral process for dual identified students. And I love listening and learning from her and how she breaks apart the pre-referral process for these students. This conversation is so uplifting while also so informative. I learned a lot today, and I think that you're going to very much so enjoy this conversation with Mrs. Espinoza Idle. Let's go. Lynda Espinoza Idle has been an educator for 38 years. She holds a master's degree in educational administration and a graduate endorsement from Colorado in culturally and linguistically diverse education. Lynda has been an ESL director in 4 school districts, the senior consultant at the Colorado Department of Education, and was the president for the Colorado State affiliate TESOL in 2022. Lynda was named Colorado Department of Education's Distinguished Administrator in 2020. She has been a speaker at many national and regional conferences and is passionate about meeting the complex needs of English learners with disabilities. Lynda, I am really looking forward to this conversation. I feel like all of your years of experience, there are so many questions I want to ask. There's so much I want to learn from you today. Just to kick us off, welcome and tell us a little bit about where you are, your school district, the work that you're doing today.
Currently, I'm the director of CLDE, which is Culturally and Linguistically Diverse Education, in Adams 14 in Colorado, in Commerce City. So it's just west of Denver. We're a very small district, but we're the most highly impacted district in the state. Over 50% of our students are active multilinguals, but more than that, of our monitored and former ELL, we have about 65% of our district students are multilingual. So 2 out of every 3 students are multilingual in our district. How we support all students is very important. We want to make sure all students get that support in their education and in their grade level standards.
Wow. So, how many languages are represented in your school district? So, you're talking about very high ML numbers in your school district. How diverse is that population?
Well, we have 23 different languages, but 97% is Spanish. So we only have 5,000 students, 3,200 speak Spanish. Okay. So then, and we have, yes, I know. So when we're looking at our languages, it's mainly Spanish, and then we have English, and then we have all the other 21 languages are less than 1%. We'll have 5 students here, 3 students here. A lot of them are 1 in each languages, but we do have 23 different languages because English language development is not about Spanish, it's about language acquisition and helping them attain that English proficiency.
I'm so curious in a school district with such high L1 first language, home language as Spanish. Do you have a big dual language program in your school district? What does education just look like and feel like in your school district for an average student?
We are a dual language school district. Currently, we have dual language classrooms in our pre-K all the way up to 7th grade. So when we look at our students, and in fact, this year, of our, I want to say all of our students we have in elementary, we have 971 students that are in our dual language program. We have about 1,300 multilinguals in elementary. 971 of that 1,300 are in a dual language program. So every school has English only track and 1 or 2 classrooms per grade level that are dual language.
That's incredible. And how are you staffing your classrooms with dual language teachers? It's a lot of dual language educators. It sounds like, though, in Colorado, you're probably in the right spot.
Yes.
got access to a lot of educators. Tell us a little bit about what has the program needs felt like and looked like for you?
It has been a struggle, and recently with the teacher shortage throughout the country, it's the same here. It's about partnerships with our local universities, but also we also hire from abroad. We have wonderful J1 teachers that are new to the country, and we have international teachers. And so we do have a nice number of international teachers that come and teach in our district.
Oh wow, what a cool program and a neat opportunity for students to be able to learn about places and experiences outside of their immediate experience. That's fantastic. So there's dual language up to end of middle school, it sounds like, and then high school is English only track for all students.
No, we have a newcomer program, so it's multifaceted. Our dual language program, again, coming from New Mexico myself for 15 years, which is a dual language state. When you come to Colorado, which is a local control state, every district does it a little different. So in our district, we're looking at our dual language program right now is growing. We last year we stopped at 6. This year's our first year with 7th grade. Next year we're going to add 8th grade. The next year we're going to add a year. So every year we are adding. But at our high school, we do have newcomers. So we have a newcomer program or a pathway for our students in English and in math. And now we're building science every year. We are building more and more courses that are going to follow our 50-50 model of dual language.
That is really exciting. So, when you have newcomers come into your high school, so let's say you've got a 10th grade student, they just arrived, they are going into, am I understanding you correctly, into an ELA class in Spanish?
No, we have dedicated ELDs. So they're going to have 3 out of their 6 courses very sheltered. It's sheltered instruction. So we have their ELD newcomer class with a dedicated certified ELD teacher. Then they go to a dedicated ELD teacher that's also endorsed in ELA, secondary ELA, and she is going to provide that newcomer English course. Then we have a math teacher who is the dual language math teacher. He is going to, it's him this year. He will provide Algebra 1, geometry, whatever courses we have for them in a 50-50 model. That means English and Spanish for them. So that will help the newcomer with not only the transition, but the maintenance. That's very important to us. Biliteracy is very important to us. So that's really our passion. We want to make sure that you keep your L1, but that we are going to help you attain your L2 in math also.
Wow, Linda, what an incredible model. I'm just imagining students with this opportunity to be able, we know nationally, one of the biggest, hardest challenges to solve for feels like students coming in as newcomers in high school, especially with siphons life needs and the having the right teachers in the room with the right certification. And you're talking about a math teacher in high school who is dual certified and bilingual. What an ideal situation for your students. Can you tell us a little bit more about what have you noticed the outcomes? How new is this model for you? What's been the impact for your students in district so far?
This is my 3rd year as a director here. So we're still designing and flying the plane. We're designing the plane while we're flying it. I know everyone hears that idiom, but we're working on increasing our rigor and also moving away from just being a bilingual program to a dual language. With a bilingual, we don't want to be a monolingual Spanish program. We want to be a dual language. That means we honor both languages. We have dual instruction, dual assessment, dual progress monitoring on both languages because our goal is biliteracy. Our goal is we want students to learn content in both languages. So that is where we're working on redesigning our curriculum pacing guides. We had a last year by the correct curriculum that actually had that alignment. Because a lot of times you'll have a program or curriculum in English and it's not properly translated in Spanish. It wasn't designed in Spanish. So we were able to find a program, a curriculum that actually has both. So again, it's a lot of backwards design and making sure that we have that. And again, it's a lot of, we are just now working with them to make sure how do we honor and with fidelity our 50-50 model And is it unit by unit? Is it one unit? And we look at the different standards, it's breaking down the standards, doing curriculum mapping, and making sure that we have the whole scope and sequence where we can make sure that students are gaining practice and showing mastery in both languages for each standard. So it's a lot of work. It's a work in progress, but I really like the direction we're going. We're moving away from monolingual Spanish only, which was the case before I got here.
Wow. So you've got some big program shifts happening in your school district, and it takes time. And so you're trying to implement some changes. And of course, teacher consistency and teacher buy in is a big piece of all of that shift and change. How do your families and community respond to the program offerings that you have?
That's where our heart is. We're here for our families. And my department is the one that does every parent interview when you enter our district. We talk to you first. We do a parent interview. We look at what resources. And so families come to us and ask what supports we have. And if they have any questions, they go to their schools, but they go to us too in our department to make sure that they have an advocate with them if we need to go to their school and go to meetings to make sure that their wishes and their goals for their student are heard. So the main thing is a partnership. It's us reaching the parent. We want parents engaged, but we want them involved in the decision making of what their students' education looks like. It's a wonderful they relationship. They come to us. They tell us how thankful they are. They tell us how they usually don't get this much communication as in other districts. They come to us and go, wow, we never had that before. And I said, we're here. We don't have one size fits all. We're going to look at your student and look at what their needs are. And then we'll create a pathway to make sure we're meeting their needs, but also their language needs.
What does communication look like for you with your parents? If that's something that stands out that you guys are doing a great job, I'm sure other people would want to know, like, how are you doing that? How are you managing it? Do you have any tips?
It's all about relationship building, and our schools do a great job. The counselors here are wonderful. We make sure that we have bilingual staff in different departments, and especially in counseling. We have a community schools director. We have our counseling group. We have our special education department has an assessment team that includes bilingual staff. I think it's making connections with those parents and just letting them know what's available. I think awareness is really the key, getting the information out in both languages, making sure that parents know where to get the information, or just having a face for them to contact. That's why my department is like the first responders. We're the first connection to these parents. Because before we can identify them, we talk to them. We do a parent interview. And then they know now that we're the first contact at the district to confirm the need for language support. So I think it's relationship building, it's awareness, and making sure that it's available not only in Spanish. We try to have everything in the top 5 languages. But even though we only have one or two in the other languages, it's easy when it's Spanish because 97% are Spanish.
Yeah, you have a lot of systems built out to support Spanish speaking families. And what I'm hearing from you is having bilingual staff across all of the departments means that those departments are accessible to families. So instead of a family that maybe at home is a monolingual Spanish speaking family and they feel like, oh, out of the entire school district, Linda's the only person they can talk to. They know they can go to the front office and they can get help. They could even email a teacher in Spanish and probably get help. What an incredible environment for families. Lynda, I'd love to take a step back. Tell us a little bit about you. 38 years in education, what dedication. Thank you so much for so many years committed to the field of education. How did you get into education? Where did your passion for this work begin?
I'm from South San Antonio, Texas. Okay. And I went to school in South San Antonio. I went to UT Austin and I graduated in December and I started teaching in December in South San Antonio. It was a migrant dual language school. And I'm a reading specialist first, that's my degree. But then when I went back and everyone's speaking Spanish or ESL, I said I needed to go back to get my ESL endorsement in Texas. So that's where I started. And then I married an Air Force officer and we were stationed in New Mexico, which is a dual language state. So I really was excited to be a teacher and a principal there. And then we went to Colorado, and I've been a director and at the state level here. My passion is looking at supporting multilingual students and making sure that they have access to their grade level content and standards. So, looking at that as a principal, as a teacher, and as a director in 3 different states in 38 years, it's really helped me build those relationships with parents, but also teachers, that every teacher is a language teacher. And they're all our students, and everyone deserves high quality standard based education. So, really making sure that teachers have the tools to support students' access to curriculum, but also having parents be true partners and aware of how we can work together to make sure their students are successful. So, it's about community building, and every state's different. From Texas to New Mexico to Colorado, every state's different, but a federal program is a federal program, and making sure that our students are getting their supports they need is what I look at. That's my passion. From a teacher to a principal to director to the state level, I just love working with the community and making sure everyone has the tools they need to be successful. And that's what drives me. Is I want to go where I can make an impact. I want to go where we have a team that works well together, and making sure that everyone is looking at students first and community first. And I think that's what makes us successful.
Oh, that's so well said. I couldn't agree more. In 38 years in education, you've seen in your career shifts, and you've seen, you say, like the pendulum swings from one side to the other. What are some just high level observations? I would love to hear from you. And you think back across your career, and having worked in 3 different states, you do have different perspective. Some states do this one thing really well, and then you go somewhere else and you're like, oh, they don't do that here. So I'm wondering, what is your high level? I've seen this shift and it's great, or I've seen this shift and change and I wish we would go back.
Yeah, you're right about the pendulum back and forth. But what stayed the same is knowing your students. You can't differentiate, you can't plan unless you really know your students. So I think that's what stayed the same in each state, is that do we really know our students? And knowing your student is collecting data. Knowing your student is knowing their families, knowing your communities, and then making sure that your program meets the needs of your local context. One size does not fit all. I've been in different districts that had 3% multilinguals to a district that has 50%. And it's different, but it's looking at your local context and really knowing your population, but also knowing federal law. That stayed the same too. Like I said earlier, a federal program is a federal program. We have to meet the needs of our multilinguals, and we have to meet their language level needs. That means we have to provide access to grade level content, not only instruction, but in assessment. And this is what I see some states or school districts here in Colorado, we're local control state, so every district's different. You don't really, in Texas, it's state run. So we give a lot of guidance, but looking at where we're at, do we know our students, and how do we support them?
That's so nice. Really, the heart of your work is, are the students in the center of the decisions that are being made? So that is a perfect segue into this work that you are passionate about, that you're doing, you're presenting on, and both regional and national conferences. I would love for you to talk some about the work that you do for students who are dually identified or going through the referral process for dually identified. Walk us through, where did this work begin for you and where have you landed so far?
When I first came to Colorado in 2008, about 2010 to 2011, our state was really looking into this. So they would ask directors to come to their training. So that's how I was able to get connected. And then we started looking at statewide, how do we look at dual identified students, and how do we refer them? How are we equitable? Are we over identifying? Are we under? Because a lot of districts were over identified, but we have some districts who are under identified. They were like, "Oh, we can't touch them for 2 years." No, we need to collect data, and then we're not gonna wait to fail. So really starting with the RTI MTSS model at the state level. And then I was able to start working with the state back in, I think, around 2016. We had a group, and we went across the state looking at giving guidance. And then as a district, director, when I went back, we were able to go to Washington, D.C. and be part of CCSO guidebook development for dual identified students. So I was able to go with the state, and some of our practices that I've been doing since 2016 are in that guidebook. But then we went back and we started training as individually with myself and the senior supervisor at the state level. She retired. I took a leave and we started doing this across the country in our own little company, training districts and states on the MTSS process to make sure that we're equitable, making sure that we give them tools, making sure they had at their fingertips everything to make appropriate referrals. So that's where it started. So then we started presenting across the at national conferences. And then I came back and started working here at Anna's 14, and I just loved it here. I love the community. I love the leadership here. So I decided to step back from doing national trainings and focus on just one community to make sure that this community gets everything that they deserve. I'm really excited at this time I get to focus on a community. I get to rebuild the narrative of this community to make sure that our students and every teacher is a language teacher gets the high quality standard base, whether or not you're duly identified or not. But that is really the key, training teachers to know the difference. And the U.S. Department of Ed a couple of years ago have a wonderful tool. I was part of their national convening and I was part of their expert panel to talk about their chapters. They have 10 chapter guidebook, and I was able to talk about duly identified. And that's what chapter 6. So my training is a lot about chapter 6 in the OLS guidebook for ELL students and how we support dually identified students, how to refer. But then after that, how do you make sure that SPED doesn't trump ELD? ELD doesn't trump SPED, but we work together to make sure we're collaborative because they have needs in both areas, and we need to work together to maximize our goals. That's where we come together. We look at their learning goals, we look at their language goals, and we make that seamless collaboration.
For the referral process, I love what you said a moment ago and want to go back there that you've got some school districts that are saying we can't do anything for 2 years. And I think when you've got access to a dual language or bilingual teachers, sometimes you'll get insight into that student faster because they're able to communicate more effectively with the families in the home language, with the student in the home language. They can start connecting some pieces or filling in some gaps of where maybe the student missed education or was held back in their home, in their native country and in their education system. But in general, what advice are you giving people for what kind of data are you collecting? And let's think about really a lot of our school districts have situations where I just feel blind. I don't have access to a lot of bilingual teachers. I don't have access to the resources. So I'm feeling blind. What advice do you give to that school district to say, start collecting data even from the beginning as part of the referral process?
And that's exactly what we do. Tier 1 and Tier 2 is about comparative data. That means it's in English. And yes, we do the Spanish, but that really doesn't come until Tier 3 because we want to look at how are they responding compared to true peers. That means I'm going to have comparative data. I'm not going to compare an apple to an orange. I'm going to compare a multilingual who's in first grade, who's a level 1, to another first grade level 1 student. So we're going to look at how are they responding to, first and foremost, their ELD instruction and looking at that. So we do a lot of comparative data is at the school level and at the district level. And again, we're making sure that we're looking at that trajectory of that student and that normative data that Lynda is compared to these 3 other students who are in first grade, and they're all NEPs, and they're all in a small group, and they're all learning first sound fluency or initial sounds. All the other ones are meeting their goal of 3 letter sounds a week. Lynda knows 1, then she goes none, then she goes 2, then she goes 1. We're collecting data to say, Lynda, compared to a true peer, something's going on other than language because we're doing a language class and Lynda is not growing. So again, it's all about how are they responding to instruction, Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3, and it's about collecting that comparative data to show, is Lynda atypical or is Lynda typical or below? And then we need to look at ruling out. And this is where I come in. What does the federal law say? it says that we have to rule out language as the main reason for the low performance. How are you going to do that unless you compare student to true peer? So that is a lot of our data collection is at the school level and at the district level, comparing true peers to show is Lynda responding? How is Lynda doing compared to true peers that should be showing their goals being met?
Lynda, when you say true peer, let's think of a scenario. So we've got a student who's monolingual English, home language English, and a student who came in as a first grader and is just learning English and Spanish is their home language. Are you comparing that second student to another student that Spanish is their home language and they're also learning English? Or are you comparing that student to that first home student?
We do not compare English onlys to multilinguals. That is the first guidance I give. Later on, we can look at that to see what is the discrepancy compared to English only to monolingual. It's about normative data among peers of who are multilingual. Because that's the first and foremost that I need to show that they're not responding compared to true peers. So it is a first grade NEP to a first grade NEP. It is a ninth grade LEP to a ninth grade LEP. Because all of us have these wonderful benchmark assessments, but they're not disaggregating the data. They're looping and grouping everyone together. And yes, there's a place for that, but first we need to look at that subgroup, that cohort, and how they're doing in their, first of all, tier 1 EOD instruction, and then their tier 1 instruction in the classroom that is again grouped. Because it's not fair to compare a EO English only to a multilingual if no supports were given. So this is another thing. I have schools and I've been training where they give the same instruction or even the same intervention to English only and to multilinguals, but did not add any language supports. But they expect different results. Because remember, federal law says that giving the same materials is not equitable. They said the same. That was back in the 1970s? And we still see that. We still have that. And since 1970, it's been saying that we should not give the same to everyone without making language adjustments. So that's where we try to work with every school and say, what are we giving? How are we supporting?
Yeah, equal is not equitable. That's where that concept comes from of the same material for everyone isn't the same access for everyone. And I love you calling out about defining, thank you for defining for us here the what like peers means. So you are very fortunate in some ways that your school district has such a high population of Spanish L1 because you have a big pool for data to think about those like peers. When you have a student, you mentioned you've got students you have like one or two for a language. How do you go about for like peers in that situation? What advice do you have?
And I have this when I worked across the state. I had small districts that have very small multilingual. So then we find like schools or like districts so we can share data. Because we do have some state assessments that we give. We give DIBELS. Some of them use iReady. There is other benchmark assessments we can look at, but also we use Star Renaissance here, and that's a national group, and they are looking at multilinguals across the country and looking at that data. So now we have a biliteracy report, just came out in May or end of April. So we are excited because we were doing that by hand ourselves. And now we're going to have an actual tool that's going to make our job easier. So we are partnering now with Renaissance and looking at our biliteracy report. So ones that don't have it, we need to look at how we can group them. But also, first and foremost, before you look at that, we're talking about language acquisition first. You have to rule out language. So that means, are we giving quality tier 1 EOD support and language acquisition class? It's not literacy. It's not second dose. It's not an intervention. You know how many times I had to say that in my last 38 years? That EOD is not an intervention. It's a core. And I've had a school that wanted to refer a kindergartner to the MTSS process and to referral, but he was getting sent home at 11:30 and his EOD class was at 1:30. He never went to EOD class. So guess what I had to say? I'm sorry. You can't go to tier 2 till you go to tier 1. And then I had another district a couple of years ago, ninth grade, high school. They were failing multilinguals in biology because They did not provide any language supports or language scaffolds. So, of course, they weren't accessing. They were all NIPS. Guess what? We have to go back and provide the instruction and adjust it because that's the equitable framework is that you have to adjust your instruction tier one, tier two, tier three to allow students to have access to that grade level content. So again, I start first with, are we providing quality tier one? And that is in English first and foremost. So then we look at tier threes when we look at L1, and that's when we do a lot of bilingual assessment. We first want to do comparative data on their language acquisition, and even if it's content assessments, we're going to compare it to a true peer to see if they're growing. Are they responding to our instruction? Because we have other NEPs that are learning three-letter sounds a week, but Lynda isn't. Do you see how it starts? And so we are really setting up how do we collect data? And are we collecting the right data? And also, are we asking the right questions? And are we comparing the right students? So that really is the data dialogue that has to be set up first.
So when you're in the pre-referral process, there's a lot of data that you're pulling, the comparative data, and you're analyzing the needs of the students, you're observing. Part of that is just observing what is the data telling us over time, because in 2 weeks we're not going to have any information. We need some time. Where do you pull parents in to that pre-referral process, or are you waiting until the actual referral is happening before you pull parents in?
No, parents are always involved in tier one but first we have to have the tier one teacher collect their data. So within 4 weeks, we ask every tier one ELD teacher to be tracking how students are responding to their tier one. So after 4 weeks, we're going to see that Lynda is not learning three-letter sounds a week where everyone else is. So then we call the parent in and then we give early intervening. We do it at tier one because we can do differentiating tier one. And if they don't respond to tier one supports, then we move them to a tier two. And then, of course, it's formal. Parents have to come in. We're telling parents, we tried this in tier one. We believe Lynda needs a little bit more time. And I'm glad to say I have documentation. That's all Lynda needed. After 6 weeks, Lynda's back in it. But then I had Monica that still did not respond in tier one, did not respond the first cycle in tier two, the second cycle in tier two of interventions. And we can show that according to true peers, Monica's not responding. We're seeing a discrepancy. So that's the beginning collection. Then we have to do dual language. We have to do bilingual assessment because then we have to say, are they more dominant? Do they know it in their first language? Then it is, we have to wait. And this is where the biliteracy report is so important because we can see that this student is above the benchmark in Spanish, but below in English. That means they know more in Spanish. They are dominant. So we need to give them more time because they do it. We do know that they know it in their L1. It's a language issue, not a disability. But I have a student that is equally low in both. It doesn't matter. Once I give them their intervention in their L1, they're still not responding. Now I can show that regardless, I see a discrepancy across both languages. And that's the key. Do we see it across the both languages? I like to say, you don't just have a broken leg inside the house, you have it outside the house too, right? So I say we have to see the disability across both languages. So that's where we look at collecting that data in tier three, because we're first showing that they're not responding to this initial instruction compared to a peer. And now we're going to look at more deeply, do they know it in their first language?
I love something you said a moment ago about at 4 weeks, teachers are analyzing which students in my classroom are on track, which students in my classroom look like they're going to need more support. In a K-5 system where you have essentially one teacher, you've got your grade level teacher. Yes, you have your specialist classes, but you have a teacher that is just owning those kids in his or her classroom. And then the shift we know to secondary education, most systems, middle school, you're going to start having 7 teachers a day, high school. That's where, if you don't have those PLCs set up, if you don't have the interdisciplinary communication established, that what is the ELA teacher seeing in his or her classroom compared to the math teacher and so on and so forth. How do you support that level of tier one support once you move into secondary, where you just really do, from a strategic perspective, have more layers of complication?
It is more layers of complication and requires more scheduling. This year, we are ensuring that we meet with, first and foremost, it's the ELD teacher. We have either one or two ELD teachers at every school site. We meet with them every week, and this is one of the conversations of our MTSS, how are students doing? And then at the middle school and high school, this is on the secondary admin. They're doing a great job. They do not only department PLCs, they do cross department PLCs. And this is where we really have to nudge some districts to say, where do your EOD teachers meet with the science department, meet with the math department, meet with the English language arts department, and making sure that we have dedicated time to discuss students. And I think that's the struggle. But I'm very proud of our administrators here in our district because they really look at the PLC schedule and making sure that it's cross content. And then I come in and say, can you add us? Can we meet with you? And that's where we come in. We work very well together. It's all about collaboration. Every department has to work together, and we didn't have dedicated time because I truly believe that the best PD is when teachers have dedicated time to discuss what students' work looks like, what proficiency looks like, what best practice looks like. And they need to have time not only about practice, but talking about student work, talking about what students need and say, oh, you have Lynda too? What are you doing with Lynda? Oh, I see that too. When do they have time? Unless we dedicate time. So it's up to us as leaders. And I'm one of those leaders that say, do you have dedicated time? Can we talk about that?
I feel like we all know as educators that the best environment for both the teacher and student is not the closed door policy. I go in my room, I close my door, I do my thing, do not question me. Yet strategically, structurally, a lot of systems haven't built in that common time. So how are we expecting teachers to break that cycle and to have more of a collaborative, interdisciplinary relationship, collaboration if they don't have time during the day to do it? I love that you pointed out earlier that you're so excited about the school district you're in because you love the people that you're working with and you're so committed to the work that you're doing. I feel like when I reflect on my career, where I have thrived personally and professionally is when I'm surrounded by other educators that get me excited. It's normal in this profession. Maybe every profession, you're going to have slumps. You're going to have times where you feel defeated or discouraged or frustrated. But what makes such a difference is when you're surrounded by other people who believe in the work, have the commitment for the work. I would love for you to talk a little bit about that. When you reflect over 38 years, how has that community, that peer to peer connection mattered to you in your work?
It matters. I feel like I have a choice to where I want to be. And I love going across the country and presenting and doing that and helping districts. But being in a community and making a difference for those parents and teachers, and then working with a group of educators that have the same values and same vision. We have a wonderful superintendent that believes that all students deserve high quality education and that we're going to be a dual language district. She said in 5 years, that was 2 years ago. We're up to seventh grade. So we're getting there. But parents have to have a choice. Parents have to have input. We have to work together to make sure we're meeting the needs of everybody. So that is where really working with a group of educators and parents and community that we're all have the same vision and goal is that we're going to do what's right for kids first. And that means making sure they have access to a high quality education, making sure we have structures in place. And that includes collaboration. That means not working in silos. You're right. We're having to tear down walls. I used to say everything was so private. It was like a private practice, like you said. And now we are really pushing collective efficacy because what we do, individual efficacy is so important because that means, your integrity, what you're doing. You have to know what you do matters. But what we do together matters more because that's when we can show that our gears are connecting. We're not just all spending because all of us are working so hard. But when we're collectively, our gears are moving because we are collective and our efficacy together matters the most because we're better together. We're stronger together. So I think that's where I love the district I'm in right now. That hasn't always been the case in other districts or other states I've been with. And that can bring you down. It can be discouraging when you know You're working so hard, but you don't see the levers moving.
Because you find yourself as that individual gear turning, 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 but it's not connected to anything. There's no progress happening.
We have to be connected. It's collective efficacy. That means you all have to be on the same page. You have to have the same vision, the same mission, and that's leadership. Leadership does matter, but building capacity matters more.
Building capacity, what does that look like for you? And maybe it's different from the elementary school lens versus the secondary lens. We know that there are we're hearing different things. There's a teacher shortage, but then also the school districts are laying off teachers because of funding issues. So I don't know if I haven't quite landed yet. Are we moving out of what has been a teacher shortage for years and now maybe moving into a season of federal budget cuts, state budget cuts where teachers are being let go of? Where when you think of that, of building bandwidth, building capacity, what advice do you have for teachers, for school districts, when you think about all of your years of experience?
Budget cuts are hard. Having to, as a principal, having to do school budgets, then having to go to a district and do district, and then at the state level, trying to figure out how we're going to spend our money at the department. It does throw wrenches in your best laid plans to build capacity. It's working with what you have and putting all our heads together and thinking outside the box. A lot of the times, it's like, what community support can we get? What community partners can we have? So, right now, in this age, if there's a lot of outreach to community partners. That really is what's helping us. Our saving grace is making sure that we have those community partners and sharing some of that expense. But being effective and efficient is looking at zero-based budgeting. This is what do we need? How do we fund it? And then making sure that we have it allocated in the right area. Sometimes it's looking at why do we have that in that area when we really need it here. But you know what? That means we have to work together. We need to look at all our budgets. We cannot be, oh, this is my budget, leave it alone. There's braiding. Now with the new federal government, no longer is Title One by itself and Title Three by itself. Now we're going to work together because they're all our students. So I think having a new mindset of we're going to work together, we're going to share resources because we already share the vision. But now let's share the resources. And then let's look at community partners.
I love this. It reminds me a handful of years ago, my mom wanted help cleaning out and organizing her pantry. I was like, I love you to come and do this with you. And why do you have this can that expired 20 years ago in your pantry? What is happening? But that's what you're saying. It's go through your pantry. The cans that are not serving you, they're 20 years old, get rid of them. Clean out the stuff that you don't need and think about if you took everything out and then you put it back, what would you put back and how would you organize it? Because probably the bins that you had stuff in don't make sense anymore and you need to do some rearranging. I love how you're thinking about that. I think it's so positive and it feels empowering versus I don't have any control over this. I don't have the ability to impact change. I don't have the ability. It's taking a step back and saying, these are the facts. What are we going to do with them? And how are we going to work with other departments, braid our funds together, work together as a team for all student success, even if that takes a little bit of pain to clean out your pantry and reorganize it to get there.
And it's painful, but it's courageous conversations that have to happen. And we have to let go the I mentality. It's a we. And that's the gears again. That's collective efficacy. So that's really my word for this year is how are we promoting collective efficacy?
That's so good. I could talk to you all day long. I love this conversation, everything that I'm learning from you. I want to move forward a little bit. We talked a lot about the pre-referral process. When a teacher and team, right? Because these decisions are not made individually, comes to the place where yes, this student, the referral process for dual identification makes sense. When schools are having the meeting for the identification process, who needs to be at the table? Who needs to be participating in that conversation? Explain to us what the best scenario looks like.
Multidisciplinary team. And I'm glad you said this because I've been doing this across the country. The ELD teacher is the first one at the table, not the last. Because this student, the first question you ask, is this student a multilingual? If the student's a multilingual, then we have some OCR and IDA that we have regulations that we have to meet. We have to rule out language as the main reason for the referral, and that's federal law. And so my question is, have we ruled out language? So we come in, and that's where you have to start with the ELD, dedicated ELD teacher. I've gone across the country, they tell me, Lynda, I didn't even know they were meeting on my student. Lynda, they met 3 times without me. Lynda, I was the last one at the table. So I go and I say, the if it's a multilingual, the dedicated EOD teacher is a service provider. She has to be the first one because we first and foremost have to document that tier one EOD has been provided. And that's where I referenced that kindergartner that was leaving before he ever had EOD. We have to do core tier one EOD first. So that's why I say the EOD teacher needs to, we have to have the classroom teacher, but she starts it. She doesn't take it over. She works in collaboration with the classroom teacher, with the other specials teacher, with the admin, and with the parent. Again, equal pairing. We have to have every stakeholder that touches that child.
I love that. And communication in the language of the family. So they are truly participating in those very important conversations, access to the materials, to the supports that have been provided, because yeah, the parent voice is just so important in that. And then also just understanding too the way that our public school systems function can look and feel very different from other countries. So there are a lot of acronyms that we love in education. There's a lot of terminology, and I'm sure you've felt this in experiences. I've sat in many IEP meetings and identification meetings over the years, and you've got 45 minutes to really talk through what would take 3 hours, let alone leave enough time for parents to ask questions and everyone's perspective and the data to be viewed and unpacked. Do you have any advice for schools, just even around timing? Like these meetings should be broken down into several meetings to make sure that there's time for questions. Or what advice do you give when you travel and talk to people?
We have MTSS for multilinguals checklist, and we itemize that. You have your first meeting with the parent, you have the second meeting with the parent. We focus on why we're there. But my main thing is that, do we ask parents questions about their child? What are your goals for your student? What do you want to see? For that? And that is where, especially with even IEPs, when do we ask parents what they want for their student, for their child? That's always left out. So I say, you know what? They're not just there to listen to us, we're there to listen to them too. And when do we have that opportunity for them to answer? So data needs to be concise. You need to come with your data already. So we have some data meetings before that. The teacher and the team needs to make sure that that's our training. I give them the form. You have to have the 4 to 6 weeks, tier one, tier two, tier three, a documentation of how they're responding to a peer group with a peer group. So a lot of that is our training that teachers come prepared with their data. So then you together you are able then to answer the questions. Do we see growth? How are they doing compared to their true peers? And then together we go, what are the next steps? And again, having our data dialogue that is very structured. Did we collect the right data? Are we asking the right questions? Do we have what we are inferring? So then when we're ready for the parents, we can say, we've been collecting, we're looking at how Lynda's working. Lynda needs a little bit more help here. We're seeing that she's behind here. We would like to give her additional instruction. Sometimes parents don't know what intervention means. That's another thing. What are the words we're using with parents? How did we looking at what the parents are able to understand in their language and then letting them know, oh, look at, we gave this to Lynda. Lynda's back on target. We're so proud of Lynda. We're going to put her back. Oh, Lynda's still not responding. We're going to try again. We're going to do things a little different. We're going to do this. Again, making sure that people understand what we're doing. But first, we have to be data driven decision. There's no pobrecito syndrome, poor baby syndrome, no more gut feelings. We need to go by collecting the data to show, is Lynda responding to instruction compared to her true peers? We're looking at that. So it's a lot of organization, but that's where I have a coach. I have an MTSS coach that goes out and meets with teachers. We go meet with the team. We have to be there. I believe with high expectation comes high support.
That's really good. Lynda, I want to talk all day, but we're coming up at our time. We could all learn from you and your years of experience. And truly, your teachers are lucky to work with you and to have an administrator like you. I'm so happy and excited for your families and the students in your community that they have you. But let's do a couple lightning round questions here at the end before we wrap. 38 years of experience, just an incredible amount of knowledge from being able to see what has worked, what hasn't worked. For you, when you think back at your career, what is a light bulb moment for you?
Collaboration, I can't do it by myself. You said it. One person make a difference, but collectively, we make a difference when we work together. And that's where we're going to make more ground. So I think because I've done this by myself, I've done it where I struggled because I didn't have a team or I didn't have the right support. Golly, when you have a team that has the same vision and mission and puts children first, wow, the sky's the limit. The work we can do together and the difference we can make. We're making a difference. We're transforming lives, not just education, but that happens with a community working together. So my light bulb is, are we collaborative? I guess that's my light bulb, collaboration.
I love that. If you could give a piece of advice to an ML educator listening today, what is a piece of advice that you would give to an ML educator that you think makes a big difference?
I feel like I'm in a broken record. Who can you collaborate with? You have a team. If it's not get to start collaborating with your teachers. Be the coach. Be go say, hey, you have Lynda. She's in your class. Let me tell you about Lynda. Let me help you. This is what Lynda needs. This is what Lynda can do. Do a positive mindset. We need to do asset-based mindset and not do the negative. A lot of times teachers, multilinguals are that's our choir. They know that our multilinguals are gifted. And in fact, in our district, we don't say multilinguals. We say our students are linguistically gifted. This is our linguistically gifted students. And we don't say English as a second language, it's English as an additional language. So, again, that positive mindset. So, reach out to others and share your wisdom and your knowledge of your students because it really does start with the ELD teacher because they're the service providers, but every teacher is a language teacher. So building that collaboration with your grade levels, with your admin, and with, of course, the district, I think we're here to support. So I want to build the capacity and I want to uplift our multilingual teacher. We want to thank you for this service because you're ensuring that multilingual linguistic gifted student is having access by all, not just with you in the 45 minutes. It's throughout the 6 hours of the day. So I would say build relationships, be the bridge. Be the bridge. Maybe that's the shirt I'll make. Be the bridge.
I love it. And what you're saying is that it can start small, even changing the way that you talk about students, the words that you collectively use to refer to students. I've always really liked English as an additional language. It feels asset based. And just having that terminology, a colleague I worked with many years ago, he would always say the power of yet. So a student hasn't done that yet, or they haven't had the opportunity yet. And it's just a shift in your mindset of how do we think about these students that we're supporting.
We're linguistically gifted. Like I said, our multilinguals are linguistically gifted. They bring talents to the classroom.
Absolutely. Lynda, thank you so much for this time together today. I've learned so much personally, and I'm just really honored that you took the time to be here. This has been such a pleasure to learn from you. Thank you.